So starting off this month, January, um, being the new year, it's only right to talk about mental health, and just to make sure we have the resources to get it right, and what's
Absolutely.
the average stresses of just being a black man, and we can chop it up about it and see what come from it for
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, especially being a black man in 2019. And I want to start off by talking about New Year's resolutions. We make so many New Year's resolutions about physical health and financial growth. But I think in the black community, especially black males, we don't talk about mental health enough and how the lack of, maybe peace that we have within inside of ourselves, how that affects everything else and how we move and how we act around our peers. And I think it's an important point to bring that into 2020, into the new decade, and actually hit on some of those points.
Yeah. So I guess a good place to start is
What?
really how did y'all grow up with therapy and mental health? Like, was that a regular conversation that y'all had, or
Um,
what was kind of the stigma behind it growing up?
man, sheesh. Let's see. I would say growing up, just in well, you would know as well because we're kind of in the same generation. Like just as a man, you were taught to say nothing, go with it, go with the flow. Naturally, you're gonna harbor some type of hatred, emotional distress, things like that, and you carry that for years and years and years. Just coming, personal experience. I was always growing up as, just take the shit, do whatever you got to do. And then naturally, I grew into a place of, anger and just hatred to just for crazy shit. It'd be crazy stuff. To the point where, as a kid, they give you that whole go to the therapist and then you just go they put you on medicine. Everybody knew like
Yeah.
Ritalin was the thing to
Oh,
go
yeah.
100.
back in the 90s. That didn't really solve the issue. That pretty much, put a
Or they'll put a
band-aid on the
label
shit.
like ADHD, ADD.
Yeah, or they give you the
something like
label. Like I was always told, well, you have ADHD, you have this. Nah, it's like, I have these issues. Nobody really wants to take the time to deal with these issues.
Right.
So now I carry those issues into my adulthood that I deal with to this day. Funny.
Yeah,
But
definitely come full circle.
and that even carries on to my adult life now. Like that whole, not to take motherfuckers to church, but that whole you got to kill the old man to let the new man come about. Like you really have to do that, and it's a struggle because some parts of you just don't want to let go, but there's some parts that you have to. And I agree with like going to therapy because you need that interaction to that free space. Just because as a black man, we all deal with stereotypes from the world, stereotypes from your house, stereotypes from your job, and just personal experiences for me. Like I get the shit like every day, like from what I do, because I deal with people every day, and I get especially fuck it, especially from like older white people, like they'll like I'm talking like this and they'll get offended quick, send an email like he's being very aggressive. Like I'll never forget it. Like it was probably when I was working in the city, and Fullerton is kind of like the city and the county, and dude sent the email because I'm talking just how I'm talking right now, and said that they felt so afraid of me that they thought I was going to come write down their address, drive all the way to the other side of town to come rob them, and then almost get fired for it. And I'm like, yo, like,
Sound like racism.
I was
Yeah,
like,
that's
yo,
definitely a
like, do you
racist.
like I work for you? I know
Report.
you personally, so I'm like, well, do you think I would first of all throw some keys across the room, yell at somebody, then go drive to their house on the other side of town after work, after working 14 hours, to go rob them? And they just look at you and they're like, well, I don't know. This is kind of what they said. And I'm just like, yo, like, nah, that's just not me at all. But it's just personal. It's just a personal thing. Like you kind of have to deal with it, and then you don't have anywhere to let that energy go.
Right, and I think, and just to add on, like I think that's a big problem. Just deal with it. Like, usually, like as a black person, you either get 2 points of view. One from your male influences telling you to suck that up. It's just normal day to day. You know, deal with it. And then you also have like some of the female influences in your life is just say like, oh, just pray to lean on God. Just do that. Ain't nothing wrong with you. Black people don't go to psychiatrists. They don't go to therapy. That's for white people.
Yeah.
We deal with so much trauma as black people because of systematic racism. Now, I don't think we really understand that. Whenever like I have a conversation with my therapist, we make the connection to that. We're normalizing a lot of trauma as black people. Whenever we talk about racism and even colorism within the black community, that's not supposed to be normal.
Yeah.
And then when you're like, even like what Twan says, I've gone through that myself, and I'm sure, at some point maybe we've normalized experiences with other races that affect us. Whenever I walk up to a group of, white people, the conversation may stop or shift because maybe they were talking about politics. Now they're talking about music and sports because here,
His name's
Sorry.
So, because Sonny's here.
That's better.
Good job.
Oh, those are bleeps. But anyway.
So you saying like, so the stigmas are really, based off of your close peers might be like, suck it up. Mm-hmm. Really don't be a
other
pussy,
black people.
Yeah,
other
black
black people will tell you to suck it up.
I definitely remember hearing like, don't be a pussy.
No.
Real shit.
Yo,
That's it. Don't be a pussy. Or just flat out ignoring it. Like whatever issues, you might be going through, just ignore it. It's only a moment. You can get past it.
You have to work. We were told that and it's true, we have to work twice as hard. But that was almost, yeah. And that was almost a subconscious way of our parents and grandparents telling us to really just suck it up. Like, you're going to have to go through this.
Yeah.
We don't go to therapy. You're going to have to figure out a way. And God's going to help you. Don't worry, God's going to help you. But you're going to have to push through this without any other mental assistance,
And
Now, oh, my bad.
Nah,
Now,
go ahead.
just to iterate what he's saying as far as like when they say like God's going to help you through this, I think they say that, but they don't understand like you have to have the mental capacity to even allow that portion of that healing to even happen. Because if you're not there mentally, then anything that you're reading or trying to learn from God is not going to kick in. It's just, and I can speak from experience because, my personal shit, like, I didn't allow certain aspects of this how I was raised to influence me just because you have that trauma that you're just trying to work out and you don't really know where to go. Like, you have your family, you have your friends, but eventually it's kind of like you kind of have to live for yourself. Like, no one can give you the idea the way to go, because at the end of the day, whatever action or decision you make, you're the one that has to deal with that. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to learn, like, you can never make an action in anger or a decision in anger, because at the end of the day, you are going to live with that decision, and that could totally fuck your life up to the point where you're just like, what do I do now? And you're just trying to pick up the pieces. And, that's where therapy comes in, and counseling, and just being able to, once you get your mind right, then you can able to put God on top of that to fully gain the growth and health that you need.
I think we live in a great time, whereas we have so much access to be able to communicate and share our experiences that made this opportunity available to actually be able to have the conversation about mental health. Yeah. Think about if we didn't have social media, if we didn't have outlets to whereas we can share this and be like, you know what? This person, this other black man looked into himself and figured out, like, what is bothering me? Why do I feel this way whenever I go through my day-to-day? When I wake up in the morning, go through the traumas of being a black man in America, come back home and I feel low. Yeah. And that's a big thing, because if maybe this person didn't start it, maybe it would have never started in the first place. Mm-hmm. And in being able to pass the message, I think that is also like a blessing in itself of this day and time. just to make that point.
I mean,
And
go ahead.
I guess while he's doing that, I'll go into like my own personal experience. Like, I touched on colorism, and that's a subject I feel like we don't talk about enough, because I think maybe for the darker brothers that may have been a thing, and for the lighter brothers that's also a thing. Especially as a kid, when you're not able to process that, it's almost like if you don't address it, you may have to bring that back up in a therapy session as an adult. You may have to talk about that. And then just certain stereotypes that come along with that we don't address. When you're actually speaking amongst black people, we don't acknowledge the disconnect that there is. I think there's an inherent disconnect between one another. I feel like there's a togetherness amongst other races, especially other minorities, that we don't see in our own community.
I think it is a togetherness. I just think that unfortunately, that togetherness is pain.
Yeah.
That's why when we come together, what we doing? We cracking jokes about each other's flaws. Like that's how we unify ourselves in pain. I mean, unfortunately, that's just kind of how it is. Like, for generations, we was born into trauma, so that's the only thing that we can all really relate to is trauma.
But that creates a crab in a barrel mentality.
Oh, yeah. And that's
I'm
what
not saying it's a positive thing. I'm just saying that's
what it is.
That's the only way that we really know how to unify, and that's why we kind of are.
That's why Black Twitter is so popping.
Yeah,
because all you're doing is laughing at
really
people,
dissecting the flaws, and then
posting them
and cracking on it.
And it's just so easy. You just cracking jokes.
We as a community feel so low and have been referred to like almost the lowest tier, that we feel uncomfortable. A lot of cases we feel uncomfortable when we see other African American or black success. We say that this is black love. We say that this is black excellence. But then are we really as excited or as happy as when somebody falls down? Or when one of us actually, falls from grace, when you look at someone like Kanye West, are you more so like laughing from your belly, or are you more so disappointed that this black man who was so influential, that came out with, that was a great, outstanding look for African Americans, for black people, has fallen? Are you disappointed, or are you laughing at his exploits and his embarrassing showings from time to time? Like, how do you actually feel?
Yeah, and that's a solid question. And then that really shows the side of Kanye that you on, because it's clear that his mental health is an issue.
Right.
And to laugh at that part of it, I wouldn't agree with. But we definitely have to be clear that something's going on with him and a lot of brothers within our communities. So before we continue this conversation, I want to talk about the 5 top stressors on black men.
But before we go there,
you got...
Yeah, I found what I wanted to say.
You got a Lion King quote, y'all.
I do. It's not a Lion King quote, actually, asshole. It's just a thing that and this is just something that I think, because at the end of the day,
I'm scared.
The household starts with, or our community in general starts with the man. So... And this goes into the topic of, I'm just going to read it. This is from the good book.
Of what? Job?
No. This is from 1 Corinthians. Corinthians, I'm sorry, I'm just joking. But it's from 1 Corinthians
From
13,
slave James, from
11.
The master slave, King James.
Shut up. If you read a little, King James was black. Be quiet. Anywho, but what it says is, when I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away all childish things. Now, just to break that down, as we're talking about mental health, is just putting it down to the sense of, we need to dispel a lot of things that we were taught to do, of not going to therapy, unlearn some things. Yeah. And it's okay to get that help. And once you realize that, then you can build from there. And that's it.
That is dope. I just want to know why that has the Simba thing from the Lion King.
Why? Because Simba was being a little boy and he grew the fuck up.
Nah, I'm a roll up Swan with what she was saying, and I agree, because it's like, especially with generations on generations and being black, I think in past generations, it was acceptable for a lot of things. It was acceptable to just lay low, be quiet, and just deal with it. But now we are a different generation. You know what I'm saying? We have to be able to speak up. We have to be able to communicate, how we feel, what we're going through. And therapy is definitely isn't something that should be shunned within our community. And I can say I've never been.
Yeah.
And that's probably that is one of my goals for 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Is to seek out somebody that I can relate to, and go through a therapeutic session at least once and try it out. But we do have two brothers here that have been through it, and if y'all want to share more about that.
I will say just to your point, very very proud of you, brother, for making the decision to go to therapy. I think almost all, if not all, African Americans should go to therapy. If not, on their own schedule, like at least once a month.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be real. The reason why I'm interested in going, is really because it's that third person that's not in my circle,
Like
that's
that
not in my
bias.
and I just want to have a conversation with them and see how I will walk out to feeling.
Yeah.
And a lot of successful people, you need somebody to talk to about different things in your life. So
One thing I will say is it will. I think almost 9 times out of 10 you will come out there surprised or finding out information about yourself that you didn't go in there knowing.
word.
You could tell a therapist a whole story about a situation. They will pick something out that you never thought to even pick out of a situation. Like, yeah, it'll catch you off guard.
Yeah,
But definitely, in my experience with my therapist, it's been beneficial.
solid.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I started going back in like September, and I've gone like every Saturday since September. And I would say I noticed, or I picked up a bunch of things that I didn't even really think about, like, just growing up, being the oldest child or the oldest grandson or whatever the case may be. I always carried that weight of certain individuals that I shouldn't have to carry. And just breaking that down, just he makes it, just talking to a therapist, it's kind of like, you need to make time for you, because at the end of the day, everybody's not going to make time for you. And you're putting your energy in the people that may or may not care about you. You just don't know, and you just being the person that you are. And at the same time, you also learn just so many different things about yourself. Like, I'd highly recommend it, to be honest, because you can find out whether you're selfish, whether you're dealing with shit that you ain't really let go. Like, it's just so many different outlets that you can just learn from it. Just from, like, what Calvin was saying, just from a third party who's just not in your circle, who don't know nothing about you. You literally just going there. They're just there to hear what you got to say, and they tell you, like, yo, you fucked up or you were right.
And another reason why I'm interested in therapy, this is
You got a baby?
nah, I changed my
He said, nah.
I changed my insurance, so now it's covered. So it's like, and
Yes, you need to put that. Yo, if you got a job and they pay for that,
Yeah.
you need to look into that.
yeah, and that was
If
one of
it's
my
there-
big things. Like, you gotta use your resources. I mean, if you got a good job that's with 401k and benefits, make
Use
sure you
it.
can align it where you can receive this type of service. But if not, then there's plenty of community-based organizations where they're definitely helpful. If not with the service, then guide you in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Now, I do want to talk about the top 5 stresses.
All right, I was waiting for that.
For black men.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, so it's a stat, I would say. It's a stat that's saying that all blacks are 20% more likely to experience a serious mental health problem compared to any general population, but only 6% of black men actually use mental health services. All right, so that's pretty crazy, right?
And I'm honestly surprised that it said 6. I was expecting way less than that.
For real?
Which is bad.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but
Y'all honestly might be the only 2 black men that I know that
Actually go to
Oh, I was
therapy.
part of that 20, and I became the
honestly,
6.
I think you might be right
Yeah,
about that. I don't.
honestly, like,
Yeah.
honest to God, y'all might be the only 2
Yeah,
that
especially
I
our
know.
peers. Yeah,
That go. I know people that have gone and have been diagnosed and have never gone back, and I'm like, why the fuck did you not go back? Like, it's like they've been medicated because they have legit mental issues, but they don't go back to therapy. I'm like, doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
like you
Honestly,
gotta,
shout out to Charlamagne the God. Honestly, shout out
Yeah,
to him.
he
That
was
is
he was a
probably
big
one of
big push.
my biggest influences to want to try therapy.
Yeah.
because-
Yeah, he's definitely a big advocate for mental health. So,
All right, I'm bluffing on these five
Alright,
stresses.
yeah,
All right, so top five: money and finances, race and racism, jobs and career,
yep.
relationships and family,
Jesus.
health and illness. So those are the 5 sources of stress for black men.
Shit, I got over.
High blood pressure from a bad relationship because you too broke at a job where they racist as hell.
Man, what? Yeah, they really can't all
All
line.
stresses right there.
That's a day. Honestly,
the 5 stresses is like life. That's what
that is
like.
that is
really.
a full blown day.
But see, you as a black man just said that's life.
Yeah.
Think about
Right,
that.
right.
Oh, this is life. This is regular. This is life.
you know what I'm saying? That's stuff that you go through. And
This is and shit. You know what I was just thinking about? I just to go back on what you were just saying about the work and everything, and just overall just life. Like we really like. I never forget that I've said personally. Like somebody said, you can't correspond or conduct yourself in the same thing. And my response was, yes, I can, because I'm black. I'm used to this environment. Like I'm used to coexisting in negative circumstances. And that shouldn't be the first thing that comes out
And
your
honestly,
mouth.
I don't even think it's really coexisting. Like we claim it as coexisting, but it's really us just like slowly crumbling. Because like you might be able to function in like turmoil, but
You're gonna break.
functioning in turmoil doesn't like. It's just like
You're gonna
you can
break.
beat your head against the wall. At some point, you either gonna knock yourself out or you're gonna go through the wall. It's one of the two that's gonna happen.
Don't do it.
And
It
more than
hurts.
likely, you're gonna knock yourself out.
so what's the definition of insanity? It's like doing the
same thing repeatedly.
Expecting a different result.
Yeah.
When I look at these five stresses, it's just like it's so crazy that you can link them all together to maybe just a few things in even one day.
Yeah.
Even one day, it's like what are like some common health issues amongst black people? High blood pressure is like number
Depression.
one.
Depression.
Unaddressed depression.
Yeah.
You know, and when we talk about that, the high blood pressure could be from a relationship or a family member, and I think, and I want to put this out here, right? So, when you talk about black men and black women, we're talking about relationships. Nobody will talk worse about black people than black people on a daily basis. And I just really want to say that it really hurts me. It really bothers me because you can have homegirls, you can have friends, people that you consider your sisters. They ain't no good black men out here. These niggas ain't shit. You hear that and it's just like, I'm a good black man. My friend, I know a bunch of.
Like, hold up, I'm right.
I'm
here.
included.
all
I'm
the time.
included in that.
All the time.
Or they'll like everyone has a past, or everyone's made a bad decision. And for us, like we just gotta like you said, there's no good. But I'm like, yo, where's the grace? Where's the mercy? You know what I'm saying? Like, because I did this one bad thing, let's not forget about the trillions of good things that you've done.
Right.
And it's kind of like you said, like no one talks bad about black people than black people.
But then there's also a male equivalent to that, in which you said, you can't trust, and excuse my French, but they'll say you can't trust none of these bitches, and then these will be people that have exclusively dated black women, and
You gotta think about it for a minute. We were screaming money over bitches. So
in our music, in our music, and it's just.
Point. I ain't think about that one.
for a long
Like
time.
the stuff
Yeah.
that we used to bob to, that even some
Yeah.
women would bob to, and think about how we think about ourselves
Yeah.
and how that affects our mental mind state. We listen to music all the time. We're very, internal rhythmic people. So it's just like when we listen to music, we may be listening to the beat, but we're also listening to words.
We feel it.
and we're making it okay to
that's
say
going
about one
against
another.
That's why Kanye said, "Listen to the kids." You know what I'm saying? Like music is very powerful.
He has his
Like-
moments.
People will say disturbing things and not even think about it. It's very disturbing when you're talking about, black women and stuff like that. I'm like, your mama black, isn't she? That's would you talk about your mom? No, nobody better not talk about my mom. Stop talking about other black women because your mom's a black woman, and it's hurtful. And then when you got somebody like my dad,
You about to cry?
my dad works hard as hell. And you know he's been there for me and my family, and when people talk about black men like as if each and every person, each and every situation dictates like the actions of everybody else as a whole community, it's bothersome because I see good black men, because I see good black women, and I see that, and it's just like I don't hear Asian people talking this much stuff about us, at least in English. I don't hear other white people say that.
They don't talk about people from their own country in the same way. Like they will talk about another Asiatic country.
But I hear you.
From
but
their country.
Right, I understand that. They don't talk about one another like that. But what I'm saying is we talk more shit about ourselves than they will talk about us. Like we outdo that. We actually do it more.
It's a two-sided coin because, like, when
Like
you,
they,
when you
I'm
get
sure
into,
it's done, but
when you
we're
get
talking.
into crime, like, or just in general, any type of negative action within the community always happens within the community. Like, white people, and when it comes to crime, white people commit crimes against white people. It's all about that's who you are around. So you can't talk about people that you're not around. What can you talk about?
Yeah, most crimes are proximity based. Like based on your proximity.
So it's like it's gonna be the same way. Like, how can I gossip about somebody else if I don't know what the fuck they're doing?
Yeah, what you're saying. It kind of reminds me of like you, my family member. Only I can beat you up, but if somebody else did, then I ain't having it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So if this was within the family, then it might be more acceptable. But if coming from the outside, then you know what I'm saying. It's
I will
different.
say we're more public with our criticism of one another.
Yeah.
So it's not in the family.
Yeah.
So I think to even say that, it's like, oh, like
It's Twitter.
you'll see a woman say it, or you see a man just talk, like spew like, you know, some horrible rhetoric about the other sex. And then it's just like it's out there, but you don't see that from other races. Like they don't post it. They don't do that.
They may say it, but it's not visible.
It's not
They
visible.
they don't have a black Twitter. They don't have a. I mean, honestly, this is honestly outside of our conversation.
Yeah.
But I will say that I think hip hop in general, which comes from our culture, is what everybody wants to receive and
not
be a
even
part
just
of.
hip-hop. I think music in general. Music is about art imitates life. We as black people in America, we've pretty much created all American forms of music, and the white people have just taken over in their own way. We always expand to do something different. So if black people being musical people from like in our blood, it's like genetics for somehow. We just rhythmic music. It's something that within us.
Not everybody's rhythmic.
It might take some practice.
Black people that
A
aren't
little
rhythmic,
practice.
even black people that don't have rhythm have more rhythm than a white person that has good rhythm.
Clap a hand for yourself.
Don't do that, Tim. But anyway, I think because we're rhythmic people and we're like music based people, and music comes from, or just art in general comes from life. It's always been a thing for us to tell other people's stories. I just think now that it got away from telling stories to telling business. Like, if you think about it,
Playground
even like
talk.
back in like in Africa, they had like folk tales, or it's like, all right, we telling stories about like life lessons.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, oh, we telling what motherfucking Gerald did last week versus
them family
it's
stories.
no lesson in it. It's just like, all right, I'm just gonna
Gossip.
Yeah,
It's gossip.
Yeah.
Shit, even back in the day, people had had a whole nother family you ain't know about till 20 years later.
They still do. They
Hey, that's-
learn about it 2 weeks later. So,
No. All right, yo, moving on with this conversation and this topic. Let's talk about some self-care aspects that you do individually that you want to do in 2020. When it comes to self-care, and I think as a black man, it's like we've been used to depending on women for so long through generations and generations, and it's like being a black man and caring for yourself is something that we really never really had a concern about us. We was more or less worried about the future and being a protector and provider, but taking care of ourselves, nah. But that's really essential.
yeah.
So what kind of practices or things that y'all do?
Well, first of all, you have to I think every individual person has their own prescription for self care.
Yeah.
So
It is
you have
multiple
to.
ways.
So in order to address issues, you have to first discover what your issues are. I think when you actually, everything all right?
Yeah. Everything good.
I think when you actually speak to a therapist, I think like maybe one of the advantages of that would be to actually have a conversation, identify issues that you didn't think were issues, maybe something that you've normalized, like going to work. Like let's say you go to work and you go through a stressful day, and it's not just one day; it's every day.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be certain things that may have bothered you at work that you bring up, and you say like, you know what, this actually does bother me every day. And then maybe you speak to someone, a non-biased party, and say like, oh well, you can't normalize that. You can't. Here's what you do. Here's how you deal with that, and that becomes part of your self-care
Yeah.
regimen.
And that's the key. I don't think we're not taught a lot of regiments or techniques, tactics for self care.
And then one
in
thing,
times of need.
and one thing that a therapist told me, it's like sleep does help. Sleep helps a lot. Like if you make time, even if you have to split it up. Let's say you do have jobs that do split up time for sleep. It's like make sure you take a nap. Don't run around. Do this. It's self care. Get some sleep. What you eat. It does impact your self care as well. It's a bunch of things, but mainly it has to start from you making sure you have the energy, you have the mindset to be able to act, to make the actions, right? To make the daily actions that make you a better person and make you more productive.
So is there anything like on a day to day that you would do? Like for me, I would say when I wake up, I just like to have like 3 minutes. If I can get more, then cool. But I wake up and just be still for a minute and just be in my thoughts, get everything together, collect it, and then I'll keep it pushing.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you. I'm so bad with it, but I try to have like a routine, but not even really a routine. But I have a list of about 6 things to try to do out the day. One is like eat some type of fruit or vegetable, get some type of exercise in. I have a journal that I try to write in every day, which I've been terrible with it. It's a 90-day journal.
Hey,
I got it in probably July. I still got a lot of.
I'm
I'm probably not even halfway through it yet. But this all came a part of the journal. It's it's a list of things. I try to make my bed every day.
Yeah. Small shit.
The small things. I mean, because honestly, once I feel like I try to do that before I leave in the morning, though.
Right.
So it's like my day is kind of in some type of order. I try to do like kind of like you, where it's like some type of like meditation, just 5-10 minutes of quiet time, where it's no distractions. Put my phone on do not disturb.
Just not moving.
Just
for
chill
real.
with a quiet. I want to say those are I think that's it.
I'm definitely a checklist person.
The day.
So I'm definitely a checklist person. So one thing I did was like I made a checklist. I made one for work and I made one for just my overall day. Make sure I drink at least a gallon of water. Make sure that this like specific things like what Dre said, like make sure that the things get done. Make sure you read. Make sure you do these things. Make sure you just sit.
Get that exercise. Drink that water.
One thing that I realize I need a moment of complete disconnect from the rest of the world. Like I need that.
And
like,
it's becoming more important nowadays with technology. Like information, the
It's
internet.
so hard to get away now.
Yeah, the access is everywhere. So being able to disconnect, it's powerful, man. Definitely is.
And for those folks that work like a crazy person, always find some way to like you were saying, Sonny, take a nap if it's 30 minutes to an hour, or when you have that day off or whatever, do something for you. Don't really think about, well, I got this for the kids, I got this for the wife, I got this and that, and take like the time for my shorty or significant other or the kids is gone. Let me go watch a movie. Let me go, I don't know, read a comic book.
You have to remember
certain things.
You have to remember you're a human being. You're not a machine. So at the end of the day, like a lot of even our motivational speakers and our greatest like influences in like maybe business or entertainment talk about sleep. Oh, I don't sleep. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
like I mean, you're successful, but you're probably a little grumpy, aren't you?
And
Like,
that was a big false mentality that we grew up on.
That you
for
gotta
real.
work all the time. You
Yeah.
gotta,
I sleep when I
sleeping
die.
to death is what they always used
Yeah,
to
I sleep
say.
when I die. Like that was in every rap song when we grew up.
Unfortunately, when
well,
you
that's
die,
why they die when they young.
Yeah,
your
and
money don't go with you.
yeah,
But yeah, another thing that I found that was really helpful was this is probably something I would do maybe like once every 2 weeks. I would try to like take a nature walk, like because
love
we
that
are
shit.
like actual living, breathing organisms. I'll try to get amongst other living, breathing organisms that don't really interact with technology the way that we do on a daily basis. So it's
I
like.
like turtles.
No, I definitely love it.
I mean, it's like
I do like-
it's a park
I
that's
do
not
like
too
that.
far away from
Yeah.
us. Where it's like I would just go. I would leave my phone in the car. I would go for a walk. Try to walk around the whole park. It's got like a little stream or something that it goes through. Try to walk through it. Just
fuck
chill,
with that.
take my time.
it's funny that you say that because one of my friends, he's really into fitness. He says like, how would you eat if fast food, if these things, if it was like 100 or 200 years ago, how would you eat if fast food wasn't available? If these things weren't available to you, you'd probably be eating a lot healthier. You'd probably be restricted to water a lot of the times because a lot of the manufactured stuff that you eat and drink wouldn't be available. And that's how you're naturally supposed to eat and drink, like off of like how things naturally come out. So that's important. Like all of that affects mental health, like grogginess and you know, you might be wake up angry. Just
Another
because,
thing also is I try to get as close to natural sunlight as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Like we know these lights. It's strange. Like even when I read, I would try to read in like natural light. I'm not trying to have the lights on. Not gonna being cheap, trying to say. I just rather, and that's what your eyes are really supposed to be around anyway, like natural sunlight. So I try to get around as much natural things as possible.
yeah,
I feel that. I definitely, like to be outside.
yeah.
Anything, Mr. Workaholic? How do you?
I got another question for y'all too.
Yeah.
What up?
All right, so I was having a conversation with a friend, and this kind of go with the advantage of therapy.
Is this male or female?
It's a male friend, one of my our frat brothers. We was having a conversation, and it's about therapy. He was like, honestly, I feel like I don't need a therapist because I got friends or I got people that I can talk to, and they kind of take that weight as therapy.
I don't agree with that just because
I also don't agree.
just because your family, not everybody, but for the majority, and the same thing with your friends, the majority, they're gonna tell you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, I don't have that here amongst the table, but you know, I do have friends that'll tell me things that this is what I want to hear, not what I need to hear. And 9 times out of 10, what you want to hear is what you want to hear. Like, it could be from the dumbest shit, like, oh, man, your shorty pissed you off. Well, no, fuck her. Go do what you want to do. Like, nah, she pissed you off. Be a man about it. Go talk to her. This is why you pissed you off.
I don't
Silly shit like that.
Even I'm not someone that has gone to see a therapist, but I feel like that's a terrible idea to confide in your friends because they're not professionals.
I was about to say that.
All they know is their life. They can't really. Therapists listen. They study. Other people's actions. They study behavior. They study
It's their
emotion.
job.
This is what they do on an everyday basis.
They
probably
got
talk to
techniques
hundreds of
behind it.
people
Right.
a day.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I would never.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to have someone to confide into. That's very important.
Right.
But I don't think that you should treat them as your therapist.
Let me add something to that. So I think I stated on a previous podcast that when I actually went to my therapist, I specifically kind of geared myself to try to go to someone who was black and who was an older male. That I don't believe there's any problem with that as long as they are actual certified therapists.
Yeah.
As long as they they know how to do their job. So that just adds an extra layer of how they can relate to you because
They're professional.
In my experience with my therapist, he's also a black man living in America, but he's a therapist too, who has his certification and has his experience. So that combined together, talking to me, a younger black man, he may be better able to express like next steps, things to do. One thing that he does is and maybe Twan has the same situation. They give me homework. He gives me homework. Like, I want you to go through these, answer these questions honestly, and then come back for the next session, and we'll go over it.
That's dope.
Well, I would say from a different spectrum, I get homework, but my therapist
He don't do his homework.
I'm not saying that.
Don't
What I mean
do
from
your
a different
homework,
spectrum
Twan.
is my therapist is white, so
Interesting.
it's from a different. He gives me the same idealisticness behind it. Like he literally just sits there and says absolutely nothing. Lets me say whatever I gotta say, event, and then he says like, "This is where you messed up. This is where you did. This is your homework." And it's always at the end of the day, my homework is always to do something for you, because anytime I tell a story, it's always me putting into somebody else. It's never me doing something for me. And
Is this you by yourself or a couple counselor? Or it's like a couple,
I have
or is it
both.
you and your? Okay,
I have
all right.
both. And it's always the same thing with couple counseling as well. It's kind of like they'll sit there, listen, because every counselor is different. You know, I have one counselor just for me. I have one counselor for my relationship. But, you know, her ideals are different because when you have kids and things like that involved,
It's
they
a
got to
different
give you
situation.
different guidelines.
Right.
And it's always, you know, going back to what do you do for each other? Or this is where you messed up. This is where you didn't. This is, you know, stuff like that. And I can always get that advice from, not saying like everybody's advice is the right advice, because at the end of the day, you have to make that decision. But from every person that I've talked to, I mean, as regards to my situation or not my situation or just whatever I'm going through, it's always some negative aspect behind it, or like there's no win-win for you. There's always, you're going to lose something at the end of the day. And it's kind of like, well, I don't think that way. I always think like, I think, what's the word I'm looking for?
Optimistic.
Yes, I'm very optimistic of, all right, I think I may lose something, but I shouldn't have to lose it all or lose half of something. I feel like, you know, if I have to lose something as far as something that I don't need, then I'm fine with that. But I don't think you should have to lose something that you need, and then, because it's that whole stigma of, you know, for example, in a relationship, what one person won't do,
Then
somebody else will
will.
do. That's a horrible thing to look at, because you should always be like, well, why does this person feel this way? What did you do for this person to feel this way? And vice versa. I see it. Someone's breathing hard. Oh shit. I'm sorry. That's a bleepity bleep bleep. I'm sorry. But that whole stigma of whatever somebody else will do and someone else will. That's a horrible stigmatization to live by. Just because, all right, so they fixed that issue, then there's another issue. So you're gonna find somebody else to fix that issue? It's just stuff like that.
Yeah, I think we got in our culture, for we got a lot of sayings that just.
They're toxic. As much as I hate the word toxic, they are really
And
toxic.
how much I hate cancel culture, they should be canceled. You know, we should probably create like a little list or something. You know?
Don't name your child that. That's just weird.
What?
Culture.
Stop it. All right, we ain't talking about Cardi B. Cardi B and Offset winning right now. Yo.
Nobody business.
Like shit. They just bought that big ass house.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
What you need a big ass house full of 3 people?
Didn't Cardi give?
true as well.
Like
That's true as well.
Offset like $500,000 for his
Yes!
birthday
In the refrigerator.
in the fridge?
All right, this is not mental. Well, they winning the mental health probably. Well, you would hope so.
Jesus.
You really wouldn't know though.
Put that shit in an investment. Build your shit up.
Man, I can't stop thinking about like those 5 stresses, man. It's just like, you know, that is. We need to stop normalizing trauma, please. In 2020,
And that's
let's
really
stop
what it boils
normalizing
down to.
trauma.
Yeah, and I mean, if anything, just creating a platform like this to understand, like, you know, these stressors, money, racism, your career, your health, your family, your relationship, those are real amongst everybody. So it's like you're not going through it alone. And if you need to, definitely seek a professional just to align and navigate everything. And I'm learning for myself, just as you elevate in life and go through certain phases, it is definitely better to have, you know, a lot of different people to talk to about different things.
Right.
Life is a lot of levels to it, so we just gotta, you know, stay prepared and embrace it however we can.
I would say, you know, and I will also say, moving forward, I think black people need to do a better job of loving one another, and that's for real. And I'm not going to add anything to that. I'm not I mean to the statement, like, because
loving one another, but also holding each other accountable.
Yeah, that too. And then me even saying that statement, oh, but no homo or nah, like I don't mean it like that. Like, there's no extra stuff.
Nah.
We need to do a better job of loving one another.
Nah, and I will say, and that's more or less for people that's our age, because I mentor a lot of youth, and they are quick to say "I love you, bro," especially when they leaving.
You know what? Because
and that's great.
We
That's
were
awesome.
the last piece of that generation where everything had to be hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like we
were
had to
so
keep everything
focused on
quiet.
like strength and that machismo shit
Yeah.
that we missed out on a whole lot.
Yeah,
Where
so
it's like
when I see them say
we're
that,
28,
I
like,
love that shit.
becoming emotionally available when they
Right.
grew up in a way where it was like more acceptable.
Although I will say it's because of their environment too, because they losing friends.
Well, yeah,
But it's still good to see them say,
but it's also because
"I love you, bro," before they leave each other.
It became a popular thing. Like, we didn't have emo rappers. Like, all of our
Yeah.
rappers was
Hard.
and I hate to say like go back to rap, but that's like the biggest influence in black culture is
100.
like black is rappers.
Lil Wayne was my man in high
Yeah,
school.
so it's like,
like
we
Right.
grew up on the rappers that was saying fuck bitches. Like,
Yeah.
they didn't give a fuck about bitches.
Give
we
money,
didn't give a
fuck
about
bitches.
Like,
Right.
it was like either you my nigga, you're not. If you're not my nigga, it's
money
fuck
on my
you.
mind.
It was like
Right.
yeah, everything was like yo, I'm about to get money, about to.
I'm gonna die with my
Everything's
finger on
really
the
for
trigger.
myself.
Right.
like all
It
that
was
shit.
such
You just
a,
quoting
like-
every Lil Wayne song you
Yeah,
know?
all,
Like,
Lil Wayne was my man. Yo.
But that's the shit that
During
we
the
grew
time
up on.
we was in
Everything
high
like,
school,
we had a
Yeah.
show
Greatest
that
rapper
we was
alive.
something that was not.
Yeah,
It was like,
exactly.
yeah.
Right.
We grew up just being fake. Like, it's really what it was. We grew up to be fake.
I mean, we was searching. That's
and
what
then,
it was.
you know, yeah.
It's hard. It was hard.
Nigga, you listen to MC Hammer and shit. He's probably the first one to do all the shit. He went broke. We all know.
I just don't listen to MC Hammer. Don't put
You
my
listen to
shit
MC Hammer, NWA. You listen to the people that forefathers like. You listen to
DMX.
Fuck the Police. Yeah, DMX.
That's only on certain days.
And then you know what? In the black community, we talk about, like, since you're talking about rappers and athletes, they're usually like the pinnacle of like black success for the vast majority of our community. One of the stressors that you have listed is money and finances, right? Our expectation to reach a certain level of success by certain means is like we have so much pressure on us. And we've been told
And
that it's going to
false
be
belief.
twice as hard to get to a goal that we stress ourselves out because we feel like in order to meet this goal, this is going to be so hard,
But
so
I also think
impossible.
that our goals are like unrealistic because what we're looking at is like it's
Materials.
not real life.
Right.
Stuff.
We
Like,
see
We're
that-
comparing ourselves to that's
to
the negative of social media too.
That's
Yeah.
why I don't follow any celebrities on Instagram because I don't want to see that shit because that's not real life for anyone in my class.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they doing shit that they're probably maybe one of maybe 100 black people that are actually able to do something like that.
And with a lot of black people, when you see that all the time, it breeds depression, envy, and then it breeds more of that crab in the barrel mentality because it's just like,
'Cause they'll
why
do
is he
anything to
on
get
and
it.
I'm not? Or
Yeah.
Or let's say this leaks into relationships, right? Oh, well, I saw that this rapper just gave his girl like all these jewels and diamonds.
And they be like, goals. How's that goals? Like,
It
What is
goes.
goals about that?
like you can't even pay your
I
bills
think
on
I'm-
time. You talking about goals?
I think I deserve diamonds. I deserve this. But
And I'm
then
sure
you got,
you do.
and then you can have a good partner that may not be able to give you that, but they're giving everything that they
They can
can.
give you their equivalent to what that gift would be.
Right.
Exactly.
And in due time, the diamonds could come.
Exactly. And then all that is because you're seeing that, and that breeds more of that crab in the barrel mentality, that breeds more of that envy. Like, if all of this is going on with these celebrities, or maybe this person who was fortunate with their business, or maybe this person who just did well, if they
You know,
have
after
this,
they don't
what
get
is
it
my
as-
boyfriend
Yeah.
doing?
If they can
Why
do
am I
it, I
not
can do
getting
What
that?
they don't think about is like this rapper might have just bought his girl $100,000 watch, but he made $30 million this year. That wasn't nothing to him. If I buy you
Right.
a ring that's worth $300 and I don't make that much,
Right.
that's way
That
more of
means
a
more.
sacrifice on my part than it is for him to buy that watch. And
Exactly.
honestly, he probably didn't even pay full price for it because he got clout. So it's like an advertisement.
When you listen to the real life stories of the athletes and entertainers, one thing that does happen, especially in the music industry, the music like record labels and record labels will give artists money that isn't theirs, like to flaws and to promote an image. Their whole thing is let's put this image. Let's say that you're this rich, like you look like a billionaire, but you really made 50,000 this year.
Right.
Bow Wow challenge.
Real life, outstanding point. A real live Bow Wow challenge.
That is
They
a
really
good
don't
point.
have the money that they're talking about, but you watch it on social media. You're envious. Your girl wishes she was living that life.
Yeah, Bow
You
Wow
know,
winning.
it's like that breeds that in our community, right?
Talking about he riding coach. That shit.
Stop it.
You know, and what
So
else?
nah, let's. Y'all want to keep going? I was gonna ask for some suggestions on finding a therapist.
Y'all have any suggestions?
Yeah, I have
Alright.
a few. You know, I go to this is one place I go to is Kennedy Krieger. It's over on Owens Mills. But also utilize your job. If you have a job and you're paying out of your paycheck for insurance,
whoever your insurer
call those people and say, "Hey, am I qualified for this?" And they'll let you know. I didn't know until I actually called.
Yeah.
I thought that was like an out of pocket expense. Like this is all on you. Like
Yeah.
and that's another thing that we're told. Like therapy's all on you. Like nah.
Well, I use therapy today. No, not therapy today. Psychology today
Psychology
to actually find my therapist. It's based on proximity of where you're at. You actually get to see a full picture. Let me look at it. You actually get to see a picture of the therapist there. I think in Randallstown there was like in Randallstown, the Owens Mills area, there was about 30.
Now, was it hard to find a black one?
No,
They're
not at all.
It's not hard
It's
to
not
find.
hard at all.
But depending on where you're at,
And it depends on proximity, like
Yeah.
where you're at, location.
because for me I'm in White Marsh, so
Yeah, that might be a
it's
little
pricey.
difficult.
So
So for you, Sonny,
DD.
did you
Double
go
Ds.
to multiple therapists, or was your first
What
black
was your first one?
therapist
The last one?
the
The-
one?
Your first one.
I got very fortunate.
Okay.
I got very fortunate. So originally, and I wish I could see her name. Like, there's a therapist, black woman, right? So I reach out to her,
hella white
and she actually asked me about like my situation and everything. She was real nice because she was at like I think her niece's recital. She stepped over to the side and then talked to me. It was just like, you know what? Hey, are you looking for couples therapy or are you looking for individual therapy? And I said, individual therapy for myself. And then, like, okay, I know this, I know a great guy's name is, oh my God, I can't believe it. What was his name? Cecil Cunningham. Cecil Cunningham. Yeah, Cecil.
Cunningham.
Man.
Right.
Cecil sound wise to me.
Right. But I like him. I like him a lot. So she referred me to him.
Okay.
Because you have to understand what type of therapist and what they work with is very important.
Yeah.
What they typically do, and hopefully they look out for you and actually direct you to where you need to go, because you want to kind of get a feel of that. They always are. Their job is to give you probably in that first meeting a breakdown of how they go about things, how things will go, how they'll ease you into the process, and if you want to come back, and this is why also if you decide to come back, then you can. If you don't want to, then no harm, no foul.
Okay.
And then after that, that's when I went to see my eligibility as far as my health insurance coverage at my job. Even if some jobs with high deductibles may have what is called a HSA plan, in which you can, if you're willing to, this also spreads to therapy sometimes and to your physical health, doctor's appointments, things like that, in which you can contribute to that plan per paycheck, and then those funds would be used tax-free. So these are from your pre-tax dollars, tax-free, to actually get you the help that you need, whether it be health or physical health or mental health.
Yeah, man, that's a good point. People should take advantage of.
And also, if you're gonna go, be serious about it. Like, because
Definitely.
they'll know if you bullshitting. They will call you out on
I
it
mean, I
quick.
would assume if you want.
And then also, make sure you get there on time. Because they will tax your ass.
Believe that.
I missed 2 payments. Blink twice.
Oh man.
We'll definitely take that into account.
Yeah, 100.
Overall, it's definitely a good look. Like I said at the beginning, if not all black people, most black people definitely should look into therapy. You will, and I can almost guarantee you will find something about yourself that you did not know prior to going into the session.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I hope this is not the last conversation we have about this.
I was
know.
about to say, and if
absolutely.
there's
End of the year, you know, all 4 of us might, you know, hopefully.
might
Have experiences
might
and shit,
have
you
some
know?
therapy experiences, and really for the listeners, man, if y'all have any questions or conversations that you would like for us to expand on or get into, we would definitely be
We're open to it.
yeah, open to it and really expand this conversation of mental health and getting the right people here to talk about it as well.
Thank you for watching What's Good Bro podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment below. Also, make sure you check out the rest of our footage on our page.
Yeah, we got some dope content on Instagram as well. You can follow us there at WGB Podcast.
And please don't forget to listen to us on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. We come out every other week.
And remember, thank you.
Okay.